How many of us grew up watching Marvel movies? I did too, but something I didn't know was how involved the Pentagon was in their production. I was recently watching some older Marvel movies with my husband, and you cannot help but notice the intense messages of patriotism, the idolization of the military, and the dehumanizing of any un American foes. The glorification of the American military at the expense of brown and black lives has been a staple in Hollywood, which is not surprising when you realize that the US military actually pays the film industry for favorable representations, which a lot of people don't know about. The widely beloved Marvel Cinematic Universe in specific has partnerships with the US Department of Defense, which actually provides consultations on projects and other resources, including vehicles, filming locations, and even personnel. The partnership is to the point that they even have a say in the scripts used in the movies. The MCU's reliance on military images and themes, paired with its relationship with the Department of Defense, reinforces narratives of American power locally and abroad. It's also served as a subtle recruitment tool, or at the very least, garnering support for it and for things like arms manufacturing and increased defense budgets. We're actually shown the impact of mediated propaganda in the Captain America the First Avenger film itself, with the way Steve is used to increase military enlistment, kind of instill blind patriotism in American youth, and generate the heroic perception of fighting the good war, and American exceptionalism and white saviorism. It's especially using times of conflict that entertainment media takes advantage of using that space for subliminal messaging. Take Captain Marvel, for example. One of the goals of that film was to boost the perception of the US Air Force and to increase recruitment, also to specifically encourage female involvement. Let's see what was going on in the world at the time of its release. In 2019, the US Air Force was doing counterterrorism operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. Late 2019 is also when the process for establishing a US Space Force was approved and finalized, which they also wanted to gain funding and support for. Or what about when the first Iron Man movie came out? We all know about the Orientalism in that film and the representation of these generic brown terrorists in the desert. It's not a surprise that the bad guys in that film were brown people stealing American weapons and using them against their own civilians in a diabolical regional power grab. How many times have we heard that argument when it comes to resistance groups in places like Palestine? But back to what was happening in the world. Iron Man came out in 2008. This is during the Bush administration in the midst of the global war on terror. Approximately 200,000 US troops were deployed in the region, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. Detentions in Guantanamo Bay were also rampant. So it's not at all surprising that in the same year the Iron Man film came out with its brown bad guys, that the defense budget was approved for massive increases in funding. It's so important to be critical of the media we watch, even supposedly harmless superhero fantasy and fiction. These aren't apolitical productions isolated from real-world events. These films glorify the US military while obscuring crimes and the destruction and devastation of the East, environmental repercussions, or humanized casualties of the ops. They ingrain in the viewer who the heroes are and who the enemy is. They show that casualties, blowing things up, all these special missions are okay when the West and its allies do it, and that resistance is only acceptable when it's American.